The horizontal rotating corridor was an early concept that was in the script, which it started off as like a 40-foot corridor and then stretched to a 60-foot corridor, and then Chris Nolan felt that he needed a 100-foot revolving corridor.
After we'd determined the methodology for rotating the sets, which was basically suspending the set in these huge rings, Chris Corbould had one of his engineers work with us initially on what size the rings needed to be and how they were going to function, because there was an enormous amount of structural steel that needed to be welded and formed months ahead of when the set needed to be built.
There was a series of, I think, 8 30-foot diameter rings, which were all joined together, and each one of those rings was rotated using an electric motor via camshafts and drive wheels. The whole thing had to be built to close tolerances, because if it was out or if the rings weren't totally round, you know, it would have given us all sorts of problems. It would have created vibrations and bumps, and the main thing about it was the accuracy in actually fabricating the rig.
I mean, the idea of using a centrifuge to manipulate gravity, it's been done on various films, most notably Kubrick's 2001, and I like the idea of repurposing that technology and really trying to choreograph an entire fight sequence and camera movement and all the rest, really do something that could be completely in camera in a way that, you know, I hadn't seen before.
With any of the sets that required this movement, all the equipment had to be locked into the set. It either had to rotate with it if it made sense, or the set would rotate out of the light. So it did require a lot of planning on my part in order to determine what was going to happen with lights when the set moved and what was going to happen with the camera. Is the camera separate from the set, or is it actually rotating with the set?
If you lock the camera on the ground, the audience doesn't see the room spinning. The audience just sees us moving all over the place. It looks like we're jumping on the ceiling and stuff. In order to actually get it done, I couldn't think of it that way. I had to think of it as, this is the ground. Okay, now this is the ground. Okay, now this is the ground.
Bring on the double.
Oh! Joseph Gordon Levitt had, I think, probably only about 2 weeks rehearsal, and he honestly was fantastic, and he attacked it with such excitement and enthusiasm, and he was determined to do it all himself, and it really, really pays off.
You have to have the right mindset and the right physicality to do it. If you start looking outside, you get motion sickness, you do physically get disorientated, so it's keeping inside of this environment. And I mean, the director tried it, I tried it. It was not easy, and he far exceeded what we did.
So many action movies now, and it's all done on computers later. Whereas these scenes that we did, it was so well thought out. It's just things revolving, and it's up to me to keep my balance, and we did the performance, and they shot it, and that's that. I love that. There's no substitute for real human energy and performance. That was the most fun. It was the most challenging and the most fun.
I remember when I saw the footage from that scene, it really is stunning, and we did elect to play it in one shot, simply because our immediate response when you first see the footage is, it just doesn't look possible. It's very clever.
Once we fall into the hotel room, the game is very different than when we were in the corridor. It was easier, but it was more dangerous, because if you mess up and get behind the rotation, you can fall and really hurt yourself. Whereas in the corridor, you're only falling 8 feet or something and have pads, so it didn't feel great, but it's not a big deal. When you fall 20 or 30 feet, that's bad. So we had to take more care and to not make any mistakes in the hotel room.
We designed to rotate at 6 revs per minute, and we got the stunt people in there because of it had a one long side and one short side. It quickly became apparent that they couldn't get across the long side, as it were, at 6 RPM. They were really struggling, so we had to gear it down. In actual fact, when we do that shot, we speed up and slow down the revolutions wherever they are on the rig. So if they were going along the long side, we slow it down, and then when they go across the short side, we speed it up. So that was interesting. It's a whole testing process, really.